Let's pivot right now from property taxes, from property taxes to corporate taxes. That's something President Biden wants to help pay for his more than $2 trillion infrastructure plan. Biden met yesterday with a bipartisan group of lawmakers to talk about paying for the proposal, and he said he's open to compromise. Republicans hope that means hiking corporate taxes less or not at all. Joining us right now is Ohio Senator Rob Portman. And Senator, it's great to see you this morning. I want to start with a report that was out last week suggesting that the 10 Republican senators who are moderates and who are looking for bipartisan sort of solutions have grown pretty frustrated. They listed you as one of those people. They've grown frustrated because they don't think the Biden administration actually wants bipartisan activity at this point. Do you think that, or do you think there really is room for compromise here?
Well, we'll see. The rhetoric of the campaign and even the inaugural address was we want to bring people together, and President Biden has said that, but the action certainly hasn't matched it. With regard to the COVID-19 bill, as you know, Democrats chose to use reconciliation, meaning they didn't need Republican votes, and so they didn't get any, and they put it through, in a way that, was not focused on COVID-19. They're doing it again with infrastructure because the proposal, $2.7 trillion, only has about 20%. If you use a generous definition of infrastructure, less than 5% is for roads and bridges. So it seems like they're heading down the same track. But on the other hand, they're starting to say that they'd like to work with us. We'd love to. We've got some ideas. We think, one, you start with real infrastructure. That kind of makes sense if you're doing an infrastructure package. And two, you come up with ways to pay for it that aren't going to hurt American workers, which is exactly what their tax hikes would do.
What's your idea in terms of how to pay for it?
Well, Becky, first of all, if you start off with something like 20% of the package, which is what, again, generously speaking, would be infrastructure, that would include water infrastructure. It would include things like broadband expansion. It would include things that maybe haven't traditionally been in infrastructure, but could be considered infrastructure. That's a good start because then your pay-fors are less. Second, obviously, there already is a user fee out there, which is the gas tax and other excise taxes. That could pay for about half of it. And for the rest of it, I mean, there's some great ideas. One would be to actually use some of the money that was in COVID-19, much of which, as you know, has not gone out the door yet. The majority of it has not been spent. Our state of Ohio, other states and municipalities and counties and so on are looking for ways to spend this money, as you know, $350 billion. And a lot would like to spend it on infrastructure. Well, perhaps there's a way to spend some of that money on infrastructure as part of this legislation, and then perhaps have the local match, which is usually about 20%, so it's 80% federal funding, 20% local, have that match go up some, and that would provide some of the funding to help with this new infrastructure. I know there are a lot of states interested in that, as well as localities, because, again, they'd like to have the flexibility to use this money for crumbling infrastructure. I think that's a really interesting idea. Second is electric vehicles. Why should they not pay anything for the use of our roads and bridges, or hybrids for that matter? Being the owner of a hybrid pickup truck, I should pay something in addition to what I'm paying for the gas. So that's another idea. Vehicle miles traveled is something that's been talked about, particularly with regard to electric vehicles. And a lot of the trucking companies are interested in that, as long as the money goes towards real infrastructure, roads and bridges and so on. So there's ways to put this together. There's also, as you know, interest among some to invest in infrastructure, so-called PPP, or public-private partnerships. That's another way to do it. So there are ways to do this without hurting America's competitiveness and hurting American workers, which is what the tax increases would do.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.